Let's talk about good stuff, Michael. Let's dive right in.
In case you missed it, an absolutely massive week for the NWSL. Not only are they in the midst of the playoffs and it was drama galore, we had an exclusive breaking news from my co-host, Asli here, that there's going to be a new franchise coming to Atlanta. We have a star-studded advisory board, and we have a college basketball superstar that is now an investor in one of the teams. All of that, plus my trip to Germany and more on this week's episode of Finance of Football. I'm veteran sports journalist Michael Array.
And I'm the athletics woman soccer writer, Asli. Welcome to the show. First of all, what a whirlwind of a quarterfinal weekend. I think that was, again, really showing the world what an interesting league the NWSL is and how we can never be sure who is going to win. One thing I was thinking, and I don't know, when you have so few teams, is the playoff model really does the trick? I don't know, like, you know, how MLS playoffs last so long. There's so many weeks and opportunities for those who made it to playoffs to, you know, actually make it the quarterfinals. Like the knockout stages last longer.
But I think you just answered your own question, right? Because the first thing you said was we had drama, we had excitement, there was heartbreak. So I think regardless if you have a playoff with 8 teams or 18 teams, you're still going to get that drama and that excitement. And we saw it this weekend in the NWSL.
But it was too quick. Like I needed a little more, you know, of that, I guess.
I was going to say the good news is we have 2 new teams coming into the league. And if I'm not mistaken, there might be another one on the horizon as well.
Exactly. More the merrier. Huge franchise fee. 50% more than the last franchise that was added to the league. 110 million for Denver. Looks like it's 165 million for Atlanta. And that shows the commitment investors are showing, believing in the sustainability of the league and the growth of the league, which is great.
I think the fact that Atlanta's coming in here, it's a record expansion fee of 165 million, like you said, more than 50% what the Denver Summit fee is, and you know, almost more than 100 million than Bay FC and Boston Legacy. Like that's just a testament to the growth of the league. And you know, if Atlanta in sports, you couldn't put 2 and 2 together. It's going to be owned and operated by Arthur Blank's AMB Sports and Entertainment, which is the holding company of the Atlanta Falcons of the NFL, Atlanta United FC of Major League Soccer, and then obviously Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it's quite the dominance down there for AMB. And funny enough, I was just in Germany for little German football meets American football, and Arthur Blank was there because the Falcons were playing. They played the Colts, and it was a very exciting game. And I saw him at an event. He had his velvet red jacket on, as he usually does. I don't think there's a lot of people who can pull that off, but you know, if you're worth as much as he is, I think he can pull off pretty much anything, because I don't think anybody's going to tell him otherwise.
And this is not only his commitment to soccer, you know, the first time, like clearly Atlanta United, one of the best teams in the MLS, but also him and his family foundation donated $50 million into U.S. Soccer's latest performance center in Atlanta. U.S. Soccer is relocating to Atlanta ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Let's not forget, like, Atlanta is really putting themselves on the map of like, hey, we are a soccer city. We are going to be the hub of soccer in the U.S. And I think you know this even better than me. Atlanta United is one of the few MLS teams that is almost always fills the stadium on playoffs.
They're hosting 8 matches in the World Cup, including a semifinal at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it's a fantastic facility. I was able to tour it recently, and I wish I was there for a match and it wasn't empty, because I'd love to hear it kind of at full capacity. with that dial turned up to 11. And,
The
based on
roar.
the roar, exactly, based on the attendance that Atlanta United gets, it's one of the most attended soccer teams and venues in the world, not just in Major League Soccer, that I assume, the NWSL team is going to draw like crazy as well, too. So kudos to Atlanta for, again, just continuing to invest even further in soccer, which is great to see.
They proved that the eyeballs in the audience was there 2 years ago when She Believes Cup, U.S. women's national team, played against Japan at Mercedes-Benz in front of over 50,000 people. Let's not forget that. And I remember an interview that I think they were talking to Sam Coffey, and she said, this is a great soccer market for our league. I think I'm very curious what the name will be. That would be my next, hopefully, scoop. What should be the new Atlanta franchise's name?
I'm sure they're working on something, but I'll be honest with you. And I know we had Amina Bullman from Boston Legacy on earlier this year, just about the kind of missteps, if you will, that franchise took when it came to the name and the initial marketing campaign and kind of the backlash they felt. So I don't want to say that the folks at the Atlanta NWSL team are going to be gun shy, but they might be second guessing a few things just based on what happened up in Boston, or either they really have something and they're going to knock it out of the park. But again, in today's day and age, everything is scrutinized in an instant, right? That crest drops, that team name comes out, and automatically everybody's a critic because they have a platform in social media. So it will be interesting to see what the initial reaction is. And if it is negative, do they then kind of go back and regroup and say, we're just kidding, we're going back to the drawing board?
But talking about comebacks or second time arounds, what was Messi doing at Camp Nou this week? They were about to open the stadium and suddenly Messi is there. Messi is walking around looking at all. Was he just strolling around Barcelona in November? What's behind that? I was just wondering if you heard anything.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that he was at the Inter Miami, the new stadium that they're working on to sign his new contract extension, right? And then all of a sudden he's at the new Camp Nou or whatever. And it's, I guess these clubs are just using him to kind of promote their new stadiums.
I mean, I was shocked. It's the middle of the playoff season. They just clinched the playoff spot and suddenly Messi is in Barcelona overnight. It's like just to hang out in semi-finished stadium of his childhood and adulthood,
Well, A, it obviously worked because we're talking about it. And B, did you see the video of this guy who was like, I thought it was a proposal, but he was just asking this woman to be his girlfriend. And he had that big bouquet of flowers. He had the video set up. And who walks by was
him.
Messi.
I know.
So it's just kind of like, he's assisting on the field, off the field. That's why he's my GOAT. I know that other people will argue that it's Ronaldo or Maradona or Pele or somebody else, but that's why Messi's my GOAT. He's assisting on the field and off the field. So shout out to that guy who now has just an iconic video. I don't know who he's going to get for the proposal. Do you bring Messi and Ronaldo?
He probably forgot the proposal. He's like, what proposal? What? Messi, bye. Poor girl.
But we talked about Boston Legacy, and they're continuing to make news, and they haven't even played a match yet. JuJu Watkins joined the ownership group, which was an amazing get for them. Won the Big Ten regular season championship as a sophomore, top honors, Naismith College Player of the Year, John R. Wooden Player of the Year, AP Player of the Year, and just amazing for a collegiate athlete who is finding individual success, but also building her brand and long-term success, because she's the first collegiate athlete to directly invest in a professional women's sports team. Being National Player of the Year is pretty cool. Having that as a moniker and a feather in your cap, even cooler.
Even cooler. Having the money to be able to join in an ownership group, which is our dream one day, right? You always say this. If you had money stashed up, you would invest in NWSL. Here she is, stashed up money. She's putting it where she knows it's going to grow exponentially, very quickly. And that really shows how much smarter this new generation of athletes are compared to the ones who are probably our generation, but also how much more money they have than college students of back like maybe a decade ago or 5 years ago. I mean, I don't know, like, you know this more than I do, but college athletes draw so much money to broadcast, to sponsorship, to their schools. In all these years, they never had money. They were like working their butts off to like college football is a behemoth. Like, you know, we know it draws millions of dollars. It's a huge business. And a lot of people just like, they did their job, played, went to school, finished, hope for commercial, you know, success post college. Now they're like, no, we want our money. Good for them.
Yeah, and rightfully so, right? That was the whole argument for NIL, name, image, likeness, is you're benefiting off of me. You're taking my face, you're taking my name and number and selling jerseys, and that I get none of
Filling
that.
stadiums.
Filling stadiums, filling venues, and it's like, oh, okay, well, they get a free education. Yeah, that's great, but think about how much more money the schools and the partners and the X, Y, and Z, everybody else is benefiting off of that. And it's like, okay, yes, a free education is nice and certainly well deserved, but there needs to be a little bit more. And that was the whole push for NIL a few years ago. And it's really changed the amateurism, if you will, of college sports, that it is now a mini, especially in, you know, I hate to say it, in more of in the men's, you know, in terms of football and men's basketball, but clearly we see it in women's basketball here, where, you know, these players are making money, they are doing sponsorship deals, they are getting certain percentages of things, and they're not just blowing it, and they're just so much more business savvy, and they're thinking, listen, ideally I make it to whatever the top league of my sport is, the NFL, the WNBA, NWSL, whatever it is, but I don't know how long my professional career is going to be. And to have that kind of foresight as a collegiate athlete and someone who's 19, 20, 21 years old, like what? I couldn't even think of that. I could barely think of that as I approached 40, let alone when I was 20. So it's like absolutely wild to think that, you know, hey, let's get this money. Great. How do we make my money make me even more money? So shout out to JuJu for just thinking, you know, ahead of the curve, ahead of the game, and it's going to pay a lot of dividends.
This week has been, what a busy week. On Thursday, NWSL announced that the formation of this new advisory board, first of its kind, very interesting group of people, collective of investors, leaders, soccer legends coming on board to accelerate the league's growth and its cultural impact, shape the future of women's game, which we will see what that means. But I think I want to like drop some names because this is like a definitely name drop moment. Chris Paul, Brandy Chastain, Elizabeth Banks. We know she's part of Boston Legacy. I think we have Eli Manning, Lauren Holiday, Grant Hill, Magic Johnson, who's behind also Washington Spirit. I mean, who isn't there? Alex Morgan. What do you think? We talked about it maybe last week, like how can you bring your branding, your platform, and, you know, use it to grow your new investment, right? That's what, you know, I think is very interesting in this advisory board.
Yeah, I think the advisory board seems akin to the Angel City investor group, at least when they started. Just that it was like a who's who Hollywood list of these, you know, successful athletes, investors, entrepreneurs, and it's the best of the best, right? They win on the field or in their respective sport, and then they win off of it as well too. You mentioned Magic Johnson; he's an investor in the Dodgers, who just won the World Series, and it's just like these athletes or former athletes now are some of the best business minds in the United States, in the world, and they're going to take all of that knowledge, the connections, the network, obviously investors in clubs around the league, and it's all about accelerating the league's growth, you know, expanding its reach and helping shape the future of women's soccer. So they're going to begin convening in 2026 to start identifying opportunities for that. And there's going to obviously be a lot of opportunities in the women's game with the World Cup the following year. It's great for the NWSL, and I know we spoke about it in a prior episode about battling now with the WSL in England for the stars, for the investment. And I think this is kind of their response to seeing that the tide shift a little bit, because you are seeing some stars, especially on the US team, who are going over to England instead of staying local. And this is kind of going to hopefully swing that pendulum back in favor of, the NWSL and women's soccer here in the US.
Definitely. I kind of want to know what you were doing in Germany this week. Like, I know, like you said, and NFL and everything else, and Bundesliga. How was it? How was being post-Oktoberfest in, Deutschland? Did you go clubbing at Bargain? Was a Bargain?
Yeah. No, I did not. I was responsible. We had media from The Athletic and Forbes and Boardroom and Sport Business and a lot of the top outlets to really talk about the internationalization efforts and the relationship between Bundesliga and the NFL, right? Bundesliga is trying to grow in the US and in the Americas. The NFL is trying to grow everywhere else outside of the US, and Germany is a massive, massive market for them. 11 teams have the rights to activate there. But the match itself, it was at the Olympic Stadium. To see 72,000 people there, I think we saw every NFL jersey. It was kind of wild, but it was a great game. But the one thing I did want to bring out, and I can't believe, part of me can't believe it happened, but the other part of me can believe it happened. They did the wave. They did the wave, the Mexican wave. They did it. They did it, and it ticked me off so much. And I'm gonna sound like such a curmudgeon again. But it was at a point, like, the game started. It was great. It was like touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Then it was kind of some punts and turnovers, and it was getting a little stale. And next thing you know, they're doing the wave. And I stayed in my seat. I
knew you were going to see that. Everybody's up, and you're like the Grinch.
And they were getting ready to do it, and I just sat there. I was also very cold, so I just tried to stay as close and huddled to my own body as possible. But yeah, they did it. It was kind of fun to see, but again, when you're trying to watch the game and all that,
the cringe that stole the wave or something. Like, is there a new character?
Maybe, I don't know, but.
I mean, now it's going to happen to you every game you go because you hate it. It's just going to find you no matter where in the world you are. There's going to be a wave, and it's not like I'm telling people to do it, but maybe I am. You never know.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, imagine you're going over the loudspeaker, speaking in German to all
No,
these people.
I called I called the fan groups. I'm like, yeah, Michael is there. Just do it now. Now, go team, go.
But before we end the episode and tie a bow on my Germany trip, we were at the Union Berlin FC Bayern match. Shout out to Union Berlin, who were the first team to take points off of FC Bayern this year. They came in with 16 wins out of 16 matches, and Union drew with them 2-2.
How was the stadium food and beer and stuff? Were they up to the standards that you expected to experience in the stadium? This is your first time there?
Yeah, it was great. It was my first time and I'm going to look at my notes to make sure I get this right. Stadion an der Alten Forsterei. It's basically the stadium in the forest, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working on my German, obviously. It was compared to an Allianz Arena or Bernabeu, or it's apples and oranges. It's very blue collar, community driven. I think the capacity is 22,000, 25,000, somewhere around there. The cool part was 3/4 of the stadium was standing. It was terrace. So everybody stood the whole time.
By choice.
No, you had to stand. They didn't have seats in 3/4 of the stadium.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. If you don't know their story, they needed funding at one point, and fans donated blood and gave the money that they got for donating blood to the team. They needed to do construction on the stadium, and they had 2,000, 3,000 fans come, and they were mixing cement and, building things for this stadium. It's such a communal thing. And then before and after the game as well, too, you get inside and you have your beers and you're eating your sausages. And it was just a very kind of intimate experience. They only came up to the Bundesliga a few years ago. They made it to the Champions League, which is outrageous for a club of that size. And
With no money.
Exactly. And with no money too. And then they also do this amazing thing around Christmas time. They sell out the stadium and they do this amazing Christmas performance and people sing and, light candles. It's such a great community aspect that I feel we don't have in U.S. sports.
I mean, I didn't know you were a Man U fan, I'm like, you're such an underdog person. Like, you love a good underdog story, but maybe in Germany, maybe in Bundesliga, you're the underdog fan.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And it's not even underdog. It's just like they're authentic to who they are, I think is the biggest thing, that they know they might not be in the Champions League every year, but they understand being in the Champions League a few years ago is giving them the revenues to work on a new training facility, to build a new stadium. Like they're concerned that they can't meet the demand of their community because, they have a season ticket wait list and it's a lottery for people to try to get into this, venue that holds so few. So they're going to try to expand a little bit because, again, you might lose out on a generation of fans if you can't go experience the match. Like I've only been there for 90 minutes out of my life, and here's how I'm talking about this. So imagine how it would be if you go every weekend. So it was absolutely fantastic. A little cold, but nothing a few sausages and beers couldn't fix.
And you basically pulled a Jaden Shaw telling me, underdogs my ass. That's what she said after Gotham FC beat Kansas City, the league's, most successful team this season. And I think that was the best mic drop you could hear on a press conference as a journalist. And you just gave it to me too. Like, yeah, underdogs my ass. Thank you for listening to us. Follow us on social media. We'll be here next week. Did they point at you and say, oh my God, Turkish immigrant, look, he just crossed the border?
Finance of Football comes to you from the Frequency Machine Podcast Network. Hit us up on social on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more football business and our enlightened opinions. This episode was produced by co-hosts Asa Pellet and Michael Leray. It was edited by Ryan Hammond. Mixing and mastering by Julian Kwasniewski. Our theme music is by Hatam Tsunami. Our show is executive produced by Stacy Book and Avi Glajansky for Frequency Machine. Find more about Finance of Football at frequencymachine.com. Follow us on YouTube at Finance of Football and listen anywhere you get podcasts. Please like and subscribe. Help us reach more people. We love you for it.